Welcome to Sovereign Mamas, the podcast sanctuary for visionary women who are building lives, businesses, and legacies in alignment with their feminine power. I'm your host, Julia Jerg, intuitive business coach, mama of two, and systems strategist for solo-led entrepreneurs. Here, we honor both your sacred role as a mama and your wild vision as a changemaker. Expect soul-aligned strategy, raw storytelling, behind the scenes, and powerful conversations that support you in scaling your business without sacrifice. If you're done choosing between success and sovereignty, you're home. Let's begin. Welcome. Another episode on the Sovereign Mamas podcast. Today we are going into a story that is filling books. That is something that you should take note and maybe just sit back and let yourself, go through an example of how a life can turn around when someone is determined. Georgette, I'm very excited to talk to you. I'm happy you're here. We finally made it on this beautiful, so it's Sunday for you. And
Yes.
Before I ask you questions, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for taking the
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Julia. It's so nice to meet you. I'm very excited to be here today.
Amazing. So you're tuning in. Where exactly are you located? Because we did
I'm
say
in I'm in New Jersey,
New
so
Jersey.
I'm literally like 10 minutes from New York City.
Oh,
Very
yes, nice.
close. Yeah, it's
So
very
you
nice.
have a bit of both, the excitement.
I do. And I get the view where I work, I get the view of New York every day, and I'm so privileged to see the Hudson River and the skyline. I love it. It's something I
Um,
enjoy a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to start with the origin, where you come from, your story, because I think this podcast is really about putting the light on the steps that it took to, become that sovereign woman. Your
Mhm.
mama, you're now living a life where you say, and you even said it, you're a strong woman, right? But it took you some minutes to get where you are today. So originally you're from Greece. And tell us a little bit about how you felt as a child and what gave you the motivation to really create that life that you're living now for your son.
Thank you. Yes, so my family's from Greece, and my parents, they both lived through World War II. They literally lived in Greece during the occupation. So even though they got to move here and they had a better life than anybody who was left in war-torn Greece after the war, they came here with a lot of trauma. And that trauma really permeated. It was such a negative. I'm not criticizing them because they were doing the best they could, but it was just such a negative lens for my brother and I to grow up in. It's a very harsh, critical environment, and yes, there were times of that felt loving, but for the most part, it was harsh. So I
Mm.
grew up like that, and my brother, unfortunately, took a path of drugs, and he was just a, a drug addict for many, many years. And I do believe it stemmed from just never feeling accepted, never feeling that love, never feeling like you just didn't feel good growing up. And I didn't feel good either. But I always like to think of it like my brother just took like we were both like under this cloud. He could never get out of the cloud where I was just always looking for sunshine. And that's the best way to describe it. I was just fortunate to have like an innate, like I just knew it had to be better. I used to remember being like 8 years old and thinking it's got to be better than this. And just always feeling that feeling of just wanting, like watching my parents and saying, I'm not going to do that when I have children, or I don't want to act like that. That really became how I made my decisions growing up. Like, I don't want to be like that. And again, they they didn't mean to. They were not, they were, undiagnosed. Nobody helped them, but they lived through some very traumatic things that affected, unfortunately, everybody, and me as I got older.
Isn't it interesting? Because I feel like this is something that I still don't know how to like unravel that, because you grow up
Hmm.
and everyone has the same environment, yet people make different choices. And yeah, I've seen this so many times, and I wonder how is it that this person goes down this route and this person this route, right?
Do you
So
know how? And I'm not going to cry. He was the oldest and he protected me. He was the oldest. He took most of the wrath. He really did. When he was young, he loved me, and he really did protect me. And I think that's what you see. Like the oldest gets the brunt of it. That's what I think. And I think again, I saw him doing drugs. I was never going to do drugs. Like, I was like, saw what was happening to him. I was like, there was never a possibility that I was going to take that route. So he guided me in that way too. Like, no, I'm never doing that. So he saved me in a lot of ways.
basically, you took the negative examples of your lives and then you switched around and said, okay, how can I make this better? And what else is there? Yes, so interesting. All right, so you lived through this, and then I'm sure you had, like, tell us a little bit about the teenage years and then young adulthood when you then decided, all right, life is now on me. How am I creating this?
So yeah, so I had my teenage years, I was very lucky. I grew up in a very small town. We were all close. I had really good friends. Things were not good at home. My dad left when I was 12. He moved back to Greece. My mother was just angry and bitter, and so home was never fun, but I had friends. So I have to say they saved me. Again, that light in my life. It was definitely like there was a lot of fun. We were close, we were loving. But then things got difficult, right? Because my brother turned to drugs and violence. I wanted so badly, I wanted something to feel normal. So I wanted to get married. Like that became a big, focus for me. And then my first husband just was not, it just wasn't, I think because when you're vulnerable and you're marrying someone because you want that perfection or you're looking for stability, that really isn't the right reason to get married. But at the time, I didn't know that. At the time, I was doing my best. So that didn't work out. And that was a pretty harsh, again, I attracted what I knew, very harsh situation that I was in. So that really took a lot. It depleted me a lot. And then when I met my husband, my now husband, he's such a nice guy. He was just gentle. I was so excited and I was going to have my dream. But then it took me 4 years to conceive my son. And I had a couple of miscarriages. And even though I know, like, I love Wayne Dyer, and he always says there's no such thing as a mental breakdown or a nervous breakdown. I really do think I had just a complete like breakdown of, month after month, you're not pregnant and you're not pregnant, you're not. So I did all the fertility treatments, I did all of this stuff, and then I stopped everything because I had to because wasn't working. And then I got pregnant on my own with my son. And even though the 9 months were beautiful for me, I was so happy. The minute he was born, I think everything, all the years of all the negativity and trying so hard to get above it and to be sunshine and to figure it out, I was flat. My son was born, I couldn't get out of bed. And if I put my feet on the ground, they felt so heavy they hurt. Like I literally would wake up in the middle of the night to feed him and be like, ow, ow. And it just permeated my whole being, the depression and the anxiety. It was like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And I never wish it on anybody to go through that type of feeling that I went through.
Wow. Yeah, it's really amazing how the body actually is warning us, but also then
Yeah.
is a reflection of how we really feel and what we're doing day by day, what we're suppressing, and then how it does come out eventually, and how it does really push us to look into those things that we're brushing under the table or under the carpet day by day. Okay, so you had this newborn, you were at the lowest of your life, you were building up to, you know, a moment in time, and then you had the strength to say, okay, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And what was like, of course, like then you have a life, like then you have a huge why. You have it in your hands every single day. You look at it and say, all right, I got to get my shit together so that you can experience the beauty of life essentially. And you did it. But a lot of listeners, they might be relating to what you're saying right now, because also, even if you're not trying to get pregnant over so many years, suddenly being and living in that reality of now I have a newborn, it's really, I remember it's like collapsing into, oh, because pregnancy and all the years before, they're building something up and it feels like now, and now what? And now it's actually only starting. So how did you feel
Yeah.
of these first few years or months maybe? And then how did you flip the script?
So you can only imagine that when my child was born and I wanted a child so badly, it was such a calling. And then I fall into bed and I'm acting like my mother. Like my mother couldn't move. Like, right. So and that was not going to happen. So I remember as depressed as I was thinking, it could be so easy for me to say, you know what, I'm depressed. I'm going to stay in bed. Somebody else take care of my kid. I could have done that. But I was like, no, 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 no. There was no way I was going to allow myself. I had to push I don't even know if the word push is the right word, but I knew that I had to push myself every day, all day, do the dishes, bake some cupcakes, make him dinner, wash the dishes, pick up his toys. You want the house to be clean. You want normalcy, like constantly do it, Georgette. Like, so it was a constant like push, take him for a ride, go to the park. I was just constantly forcing myself out of, I just didn't want to create this generational cycle. And I saw, and then the two things, I didn't want to create this generational cycle. And the second thing is, he was a boy and my brother had died. My mother had lost her son. It messed with my head so much to separate myself. This is my child. This is my experience. This is my, I get to create this experience for him. Even saying it, I got nervous. It was a lot. It was just it was an overwhelming amount of pressure, anxiety, and it lasted till recently. I could not overcome that anxiety of my brother, my brother, my son, because I experienced it, I lived it, and the fear of it. So that's just really what I did. For him, I got up, made breakfast, had what he wanted, had his snacks, made him his hot chocolate, cooked the popcorn the way he liked it, had his friends over, took them all out to the park, took them to zoos, took them to aquariums. I was like just Miss Perfect Mom, which is what I wanted to be. But inside, I was exhausted. I was just so I was just like, and I did it, and I was happy. I was happy to see him happy, but I wasn't taking care of myself. I was just pushing through it so that I wasn't reliving what I experienced as a child. That became really the resilience. That became the drive behind it all. Like, no, you're not going to be in bed. Your kid's not going to see you sleeping 24 hours a day. You're going to get up and you're going to move and you're going to create a happy life for your family.
Mm, okay. Which is beautiful, which is really like probably also what saved you then, that motivation, that driver. Okay, I want that for my son. But then at the same time, so looking at you today and hearing what you're doing, and I know that you're helping others and you're a life coach now. So when was the moment when you said, all right, from the outside it's all bright and shiny. Now I get to look inside and also clean up so that I actually feel good.
I was doing it simultaneously. So I was reading every chance I got. And I eventually found an amazing therapist who also helped me. She helped me on this path of self-help and law of attraction. So I would have to say that I was, even though I was depressed and I was in bed and I would force myself to get up, if I look back now, I had no skills. I did not know how to help myself move. I didn't know how to, I had no idea how to feel better. And even though I tried some medications, like I'd go to a doctor, I don't feel well, they would prescribe medication. That never seemed to work. I remember I took one pill and like I gained 10 pounds. I was like, no, this is not going to help me feel better. But for some reason, when I learned about the law of attraction, there was something about like attracts like that I could intellectually hold on to. So I remember like taking my son in the stroller and going for a walk and saying, it's a sunny day. I'm smiling. I'm happy. Like just training myself to, if I wanted to be happy, like attracts like, I had to be that happiness. So it was, I could do it and it would last for a minute or two, but I did it all day long. And I'll never forget the day when lunchtime came and I was like, I was happy all morning. Oh my goodness, I did it. Like just from that practice of noticing all the good things in my life. And there were a lot of good things. And as a matter of fact, one of my favorite things, this really snapped me out of it. A very good friend of mine who was into the law of attraction said to me one day, "You've got to practice gratitude, Georgette. You need to be grateful." And I remember looking at her and saying, "I have nothing to be grateful for." I really said that. That's depression. And then when I read something from Esther Hicks, Law of Attraction, and she said, "Be grateful for the pillow on your bed." That was like my Helen Keller moment when I realized, oh my God, I'm grateful for my clothes. I'm grateful for blades of grass. I'm great. All of a sudden, it was like so embarrassing that I said that because there's so much to be grateful for. So that was another big, again, just practicing these skills, like staying in gratitude, noticing what's positive, reading, obviously. And then when I got to the point where I had, now my depression and anxiety are still low lying. They're still there. They haven't gone away completely. And I think that's because it was, even though I'm a lot better, because there were so many years of the negativity, that momentum's still there. But it's a lot better than it used to be. And I think eventually it'll go away. But when I got to a point where I was like happy all day or I was satisfied and feeling good about my life, I'll never forget. I was like, I have to teach this to other people. Like, this is such a beautiful thing. I didn't have to go to Paris. I didn't have to climb a mountain. I didn't have to like go anywhere. I did this at home while I was washing dishes, pushing the stroller, going for a ride. It was all mental. It was all, my mindset. And so that's when I started to become, that's when I became a life coach. So I went
Mm.
to the Metaphysical Institute, got certified, and I've been practicing it ever since. I've been practicing like at least 10 years now.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, and I love that you say that because a lot of people think in order to really change your life, you have to actually physically do or go somewhere, do something, make those big adjustments. And it's like you say, it's just in your head, right? But that's even more difficult then, because obviously, if you take yourself on vacation or you remove yourself out of the circumstances that you're in, then it's a lot easier to break a cycle. So it definitely shows how resilient you are and how strong. And probably it goes back then again to your upbringing where you had enough data to look back and saying, oh no, this is not how I want to continue my life. I want to actually
Mm.
create it. Okay. And
Uh, Can I
when you,
just add something? I'm sorry. But that's also my inspiration. That's why I make motivational videos every single day on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, because I the reality of happiness of this is a practice. It's not easy. I do it every day. And I think a lot of people think, well, if I practice the law of attraction for a week, I'm going to feel better. And that's the biggest myth of all, that you think your marriage can survive if you don't work on it every day, or that you can have a thriving relationship with your child, or that you can have a thriving relationship with yourself if you're not working on it every day. And you said something earlier and I was laughing, like, how'd you overcome it? There were so many days I'd look in the mirror at night and go, today was ugly. Today was just ugly, but I did it. I got through it. It wasn't the most dignified way that I wanted to live my life, say, but I did it and I would laugh because that's the human experience, right? It's not easy and it's not always going to look good. Like you see all these, people, or you're on Instagram and everyone's traveling and doing, and I'm very happy for them. But us normal people, this is how we can get to where we want to be. And it's not going to look the way it does for a movie star.
hmm, yes. And I truly believe even though the polished versions on Instagram go through the same ups and downs, it's just not there, not putting it on their wall.
One of
Right.
my favorite things to say is, like, 'cause I do a lot of dating and relationship, you know, Cameron Diaz, one of my favorite actresses, right? She's in all those rom-com movies and everybody loves her and everyone looks at that and thinks, oh, I want that. She didn't get married till she was 42. So
Mhm.
just like you say, like, it looks perfect from the outside, but she had her she had her trials and her tribulations and her heartaches with relationships. So yes, it looks like you're right. It's like a perfect picture, but most people have to experience the heartache and of what life has to offer before we get to that sunshine.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it brings it down to some raw and realness. And I also believe, like, look, I'm 42 and I'm not married and I've never been married. I still have two beautiful children, and I'm very grateful about how life turned out for me and how I'm leading my life. And I think that the minute you are um, looking at your own life or the circumstances that you're in, but it, the society outside, they might judge you. Like,
Hmm.
and I know when I have a lot of people who've said it out loud. The way I live my life,
Hmm.
triggers, it causes other people to think that certain things are not in place because I'm not doing it in a way that's normal. And so, um, okay, so we are coming back to this conversation. We got, yeah, life got in the way. And so we're continuing now without further ado. We were kind of talking about how circumstances and the looks from the outside sometimes make you shrink. And people, especially when you do listen to strangers and they look at you and you might find I'm not fitting the norm, I'm not fitting the box. And if that is your way of judging yourself and of leading your life, it'll become really hard to fulfill your dreams. And I'm just a strong believer that at the end of the day, at the end of your life, you're the only person you have to face. And if that isn't a good enough reason to do whatever you want to be doing, then what else is, right? You don't have to report to someone. And if other people don't like the way you lead your life, then so be it. So be it. And so I think this is where we left off. And now today we're continuing the conversation. And I love how we both had a night to sleep, or at least, yeah, we both slept a night, right? Yes. It's one day later. And I love how you came in and said, look, I want the listeners to understand that I actually am a badass woman, right? I
Hmm.
am. I've done
Totally.
things, and we only like, and it's amazing you shared your story for the first time so openly and so publicly, right? So first of all, thanks so much for trusting this space and trusting yourself now to really let your voice be heard and that you are vulnerable enough to be seen. What was it that you wanted to share with the listeners that you said, I can't end this podcast interview without them knowing this?
The journey, well, first of all, reflecting back on what you just said, you're very fortunate that you can be so strong. I know for someone like me who's been through so much, I had to work on my self-love, my self-esteem, my self-image. I had to build all that up before I didn't feel like a victim to people, like people's comments or their disapproval. So a lot of women, I think, when they're in that stage, and it's so common for us to be the kind of feeling like you're beaten up. We have to work on our self-respect and our self-love. That's up to us to really build that. And again, when I really realized how depressed I was, I had no skills. I didn't know I had to do that myself. So it was something that I had to learn, and it's something that I want to share as well, that a lot of the skills that we have to build, you can only build from within you. So one of the biggest things about the law of attraction that really shaped me, aside from the like attracts like, and I was very focused on if I want to have a happy life, I have to be happy. If I want a loving marriage, I had to be that love. Like that was a big part of like I had to shift. I'm waiting for love or I'm waiting for happiness to know I have to create it for myself. And doing that built my self-confidence and my self-esteem. Like I became a stronger person. So I want to share that with your audience, but I also want to share that, and I just blanked on what I want to say. I want to share that I totally blanked on what I want to say.
That's okay. You told me, so I can help you because you mentioned that, you're you really are a leader in what you're doing. You're at a high school, like professor in a university and things like that. And when you tell your story, it kind of feels like it's coming from a place of victimhood, or maybe it
Yes.
does only focus on the negative, but these are the moments that shape us, that make us stronger, that build the resilience. And so we have to tell those downtime moments, or those really dark phases of our lives, in order to understand why we're now shining so brightly. There's
And
no,
also to help other people understand you're not alone. It's happened to all of us. We all have such powerful stories to share, and that the more we share, the more normal we feel. And I
yeah.
remember now, I wanted to talk about goal setting. So one of the things that really I learned from the law of attraction, and this was a big one, when I wrote down my goals, when I was in that stage of like just like floating through life. And I opened up a journal and I wrote down, like, what do I want? And I looked at the journal and I had no idea what I wanted. It was so clear why I was depressed. Like I was just floating through life. I was not deliberate with my actions. I wasn't intentional with what I wanted to do. So I became extremely focused on goals and goal setting. So even as I was very depressed. Like I knew I always wanted to be a writer. So right away, one of the first things I did was I started writing. I wrote my first book, like Empowered, 11 Ways to Be Empowered. It's a cute book, but I was so excited about it. And then when things were coming up, like people at work were annoyed or some relative was annoyed, I'm like, I'm writing my book today. Like I have a focus. I know this is what I want to focus on. And it really helped me stay out of drama. It helped me stay out of people draining my energy, me draining my own energy with my own negative self-talk. Like having goals, like writing them down, like saying, what do I want? And writing that down is a tremendous gift for women to really get focused on what they want. And as we do things, and I'll give you a great example. I'm married 27 years. In the beginning, when I was writing and I would need time to write, right? My husband would be like, well, wait a minute, don't you have laundry to do? And I think a lot of women experience that like with their spouse, like there's these boundaries and they want you to do certain things. And I really had to very gently and assertively be like, this hour is for me, or this time is for me. This Saturday afternoon, I'm going to Bear Mountain, which is a beautiful place to go sit and write. And I started to really create a nice space for myself. So I know a lot of women that I coach talk about that one. Well, I really can't do that. I have kids to take care of, or I have responsibilities. But we can start to even do 10 minutes at a time. You stretch 10 to 15 to 20. And before you know it, you're creating space for yourself. And we have to do that for ourselves because, and that's, by the way, one of my books, my self project, is all about the scattered pieces of our lives that are all over the place. Ex-boyfriends, families, community, right? Our jobs, our children, we're just everywhere. And it's just, we need to like, only we can pull that back. Like, I think a lot of women are like, well, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with my marriage. I'm not, but we can take care of that. That's just completely up to us to figure out ways to bring joy back into our lives, or meaning, or whatever your goals may be. You can slowly work at it and start to create a life that you really love.
Yes, I love that. And I love also the concept of giving even months a context. Like when you are like in that headspace of, okay, I'm intentionally now creating something. And we all know this, that we say one day we will write a book, one day we will go on that holiday, one day I will do this and that. And that one day never happens unless we really, like you say, we make it a goal. And sometimes it's still like, even if it's on paper, it might be overwhelming and saying, oh, how am I fitting it in? But um, if you have a system set in place that helps you to create containers for your projects, where you say, okay, now it's going to be October and that's my writing month. That's when I focus. Yes, of course, the other areas of my life will they will always be there. But everything that I'm doing, and I let everyone know that October is my writing month because I'm excited to publish my next book. I'm excited to like devote myself to sharing my story. November will be family, or business month, and then December is the family month again, where I'm really switching gears and also looking into um, having this more as a focus theme. And this helps to then also create a better memory for yourself when you look back and when you think back, oh, this year I wrote my book, but you did so much more, right? And you did so much more throughout this year, and it just helps structuring, and the mind needs structure. I'm a
Mm.
big fan of freedom, and I broke out of the system, and I'm always like jokingly saying I'm Frankie because I'm doing it my way. But at the same time, the freedom only gets created if you put it in a structure and in systems so that you can actually enjoy the space, the money, the time, the quality, the relationships that you're calling in. So it's not. Sometimes I feel like people are misunderstanding the concept of freedom or the concept of goal setting. So it's about intention, like, and you said it, right? If you are intentionally living your life, and that creates a lot of space and freedom and fulfillment. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you can go through your whole day, right? Like your children can carry you away, your job can carry you away, the traffic, that's not intentional. For me, I get up at like 5 in the morning because that's my time to be extremely intentional and to really figure out what's this day going to look like? What do I want? And to meditate and to get centered and to do my gratitude list and whatever it may be. And that's so like important to me because everything's quiet. Even the dog doesn't wake up. And it's just literally my time to be able to create. And I think I love the word create because I don't know people realize how much they can create in their lives when they're intentional. So if you just take the time to think, well, where do I have 5 minutes a day? Where do I have 10 minutes? Where can I make a list? How can I start working on my list? How can I start building my dreams? Even if, like you said, they're big dreams, you can take baby steps and start working towards something. And then you start to feel fulfilled. You're not angry or resentful. So many women go through these stages where they're angry and resentful. And I get it because I've been there, but it's because we've scattered our lives everywhere. We've given away so much of ourselves and we feel so depleted and we don't even know who we are, right? Sometimes we look in the mirror like, who am I? So it's just nice to be able, when you do this, like this goal setting and this intention, being intentional, you do come back to yourself, you find yourself, and no one can do it for you. And I think that was the biggest takeaway from my depression. I was waiting for my husband to do it for me. I was so angry, like, why isn't he helping me? Why isn't he helping me? I just didn't realize that it was completely up to me. It was my self project. I had to take care of me.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what Someone Mamas is all about. Like, you are your strongest leader. This is about leadership essentially, like where we come back into alignment and saying, no, what do I want? How am I gonna build this? Like, who are the women and my circles? Who are those people who lift me up? Like, there's a combination of so many things that fall into place, and that's a conversation for another conversation, a topic for another conversation. That's how I say it. But it is what I stand for. I truly believe that we get to pull ourselves back inwards and not outsource our power, because yeah, oh my gosh, I could talk about birth now and all the topics, like your food, your health, your wealth.
Yes.
So it starts with us.
And
And
it's about self-love, right? If you don't love yourself enough to eat well, to drink water, to take care of yourself, and and it's really hard because as a coach, I see this a lot when women get to be older, middle age or whatever, and they're not doing it. I'm like, when are you going to do it? And
mm,
then when you do it, it has to be, this is my lifestyle from now on. It's not something temporary. I'm going to do it for a month and feel better. It has to be something that you do. Like for me, it's Groundhog Day. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but every day is the same thing. You wake up, you're intentional, you're in gratitude, you're
mm,
focused on your goals. And of course, you're always going to focus on your family. You're never going to neglect your children or your husband or your responsibilities, but we neglect ourselves so quickly. So that's why that morning time for me is my time to make sure Georgette's important. I'm going to take care of Georgette and I'll make
mm.
sure Georgette's needs are met so she can be, the beacon of light to the world that I am.
Yes, beautiful. Well, Thank you so much for sharing sharing your story and the tips. And I truly believe there's a lot of nuggets in here that the women who are listening can take away. What is one project that you would like for everyone to, or do you have anything that you would like to share with the audience where you say, come and get a feel for my world? Or is it simply Facebook where they connect with you?
Sure. Yes, sure. So I'm on Facebook by name Georgette Van Vliet and Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I'm always posting motivational videos about just being a human being and how how to be inspired, happy, money issues, right? We have so many we have so much anxiety around money. And of course, I have a new book that I wrote, and it's really about healing, my new book, Raise Your
Oh,
Happiness Frequency. And it's
amazing.
about healing because if we don't heal, we can't manifest. When I was really depressed, I was like, I want money or I want a business. Why isn't it happening for me? Like I laugh now because back then I was how did I think I was going to manifest when I was so angry and I had so much, I had to forgive myself and I had to forgive others and I had to do so much internal work. I'm so glad I did it. It's empowered me to be who I am today. And that's what motivated me to write the book. But it's just really important that we do the inner work for ourselves, and that's going to empower us, give us the courage, give us the confidence to really pursue our dreams and be great leaders for our family and the world. So, yes, I would love for everyone to follow me and be inspired.
Yes, thank you. We will link to everything that you mentioned in the show notes. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. And if this conversation sparked something within you, then trust it. Sit down and maybe even stop for another 5 minutes and don't just rush back into your life, but sit down and what came up for you while listening to Georgette's story and inspirational tips and tricks, because sometimes it's literally only that reconfirmation that we need from others. If she can, maybe I can too. If it happens to her, could it happen to me as well? Think about that. And with this, thank you so much for listening, and we shall see you on the next episode. Thank you.